All right, guys. So in this video, we're going to talk about kind of the mindset of when you go into the step exam. Obviously, it's a very stressful day, and a lot of times I've been working with some people who are getting ready to take a test, and they're like, well, how do I deal with the anxiety? Is it medications, or what can I do? And I'd say the best thing we can do is prepare well ahead of time. And in this video, I'm talking about 5 things that I did from my own personal experience to kind of navigate the USMLE test and really kind of gain that confidence along the way. Because I can tell you, when I first started out in this journey, I wasn't sure whether I was going to make it or not. Honestly, it was one of those things. I was like, I had that perception of, okay, maybe am I smart enough, and can I do it? But ultimately, obviously, I made it through. And these are the 5 things that I did to kind of help my confidence, especially as we worked our way up to the test day. Step number 1 is going to be you got to go all in. And what I mean by that is having that mindset of, when I first started that journey, I was like, yeah, let me get the MD degree and then maybe I'll do something with it. I wasn't even sure how to, if I could get into residency. I didn't know what residency and attending was technically at that point. But it wasn't until I technically went, quote, all in, that I actually started making those gains and gaining that confidence and that attitude. Really, it's just developing that attitude of, this is a one-way ticket. And I was working as my school was unique, so you could kind of work and go to school at the same time. And I was a school teacher. I taught the 4th grade down near Orlando, Florida. And I was at that crossroads of, I was going to class, and I needed to go to the next step, the next phase, which was doing clinicals, in rotations. And I had to choose. And basically, when it was time as a school teacher, you get to renew your contract for the next year. And really, without having anything set up, without having any type of job or anything, I told the school system I wasn't coming back. I'm gonna pursue some other stuff that I'd like to do. And so essentially, there was a time there where I was just like, okay, I don't have a job or anything waiting for me to pay the bills. I'm gonna try to seek rotations and stuff like that. In my school, you could do them kind of off the grid per se. So what I wound up doing was actually sending out blind emails to people. I'm talking all over the place, and basically asking, hey, I can help you see your patients. And I knew I could kind of get signed off on some of my clinical rotations for that. And this one guy, Dr. Reddy, he emailed me back saying, basically, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I have a need. I have a very busy clinic. I could use some help. And so then I drove basically 6 hours up to see him, interviewed with him for about 5 to 10 minutes, and he said, let's give it a try. Of course, and again, that time frame was, at that point, I had already several weeks earlier told the school system I wasn't coming back. But this gave me an opportunity to work for a person who's in the medical field. He had contacts that helped me get more rotations, and I wound up working for him for between 2 to 3 years. So technically, when I did my rotations, I was theoretically getting paid for it. And I wouldn't have got to that point really unless I went totally all in on the process, and it just worked out. But I'm just a big believer, and that's just how the universe works. So as you're going through this, you're gonna be kind of, well, if this doesn't work, I'll do this, that, and the other. And I'd say just believe in yourself and just make this a one-way ticket. And as I say, just flat out go all in. And I promise you, the universe tends to reward that type of mentality. The second step is going to be, or the second tip is going to be, you got to change your story. Because a lot of times, when we could be studying or we're going to start this journey, we get fearful. And we get fearful for reasons that, oh my gosh, there's not going to be enough residency spots, how do I know I'm going to pass step 1, step 2, and the list goes on. And gosh forbid you get into a group of people and then the negative Nellies just kind of come out, and it just becomes one of those giant situations where everybody's feeling kind of down about themselves afterwards. And when I was going through the process in school, I kind of stayed by myself, kind of off to the side, and let everybody kind of chit chat about how difficult it was going to be. But I'd say typically when you're going through the process and you're fearful, and again, fear is just kind of it's the future that's kind of unknown, and we create that in our head, But when it perpetuates, but when it just stays there more than it should, and don't get me wrong, there should be a sense of a sense of fear or anxiety because it is an unknown. But when it overtakes you to where it affects your studying and affects how you interact with others, then that's a problem. But typically, I would look at that, especially from a psychiatry perspective, and say there's usually something behind that. And I would probably ask yourself, was there another time in your life where you felt kind of out of control, or you didn't feel good enough, or you just didn't feel like you were smart enough, good enough, or could actually accomplish the task? And because typically, when things overwhelm us, and I don't care whether it's in relationships, poor relationships, or and such, or how we strive academically, is when something kind of becomes more than it should. Usually there's something in the background, and again, it's that old story we tell ourselves about not being good enough or smart enough. And for me, it always goes back, or one of the situations that I can just recall off the top of my head was, again, I was in the 4th grade. I didn't turn in an assignment. A teacher makes a comment, he just can't keep up with the other kids in that group per se. And she told my mom, and of course my mom repeated it. And when you're that age, even the 4th grade, you hear something so many times by the people that are your caregivers per se, is you start to believe it. And the part of the story that wasn't told was I didn't turn the assignment in because there was arguing going on at home, and I just didn't feel doing schoolwork just wasn't part of where my mentality or where my thoughts were at. There was arguments at home that affected that, but no one really knew that part of the story, or it wasn't part of the conversation. All they said was he can't keep up, and it gave that perception of not being good enough, and among some other things, that really kind of strikes someone's confidence. And when you carry that stuff into adulthood, it just doesn't translate very well. So, I kind of had that for a very long time, and that lack of confidence, codependency, just an overall, weakness in my eyes about myself. And I carried that on for years until I really kind of understood it. And that's why I love mental health and psychiatry so much, because, you have the opportunity to actually change somebody else's trajectory so they don't have to wait longer. Or there's so much potential that's sometimes untapped because of that old story. So what I'd also challenge you then is to say, identify the struggles early on, because when you get to test day, when you walk into that exam, you want to be rock solid, and you want to change that story about yourself, so you walk in there with confidence and just a knowing that this test is just a formality. And again, it goes back to that one-way ticket thing. So tip number two, I'm going to say is just change the old story. Tip number 3 is going to be, the small details are everything. And I'm a big believer in this, all the way down to how you study, when you study. When you make a list, every day you should be making a checklist. I'm going to do 50 questions. I'm going to do this, and you check those boxes out, off after you do them, and you hold yourself accountable to those. It's all about the little things, the little details. It's how you prepare for something that really kind of determines that outcome. So, when you get into those step exams or that prometric station, it's about as boring. You got these tight headphones if you want to use those for the sound, and then you're into some very hard. To me, it's a hard chair. It's very simple, but that's how you should be studying. Don't make yourself too comfortable. You practice like you're gonna play it. When I was back when I was a school teacher too, I told the students, we're held accountable for these exams that you take from a statewide. We're going to teach this stuff just like it's going to be on that exam, because I don't want you to, I don't want you to see something for the first time when it counts. And that holds true for the step exams as well. You should be kind of to me, you should be in a uncomfortable chair for the most part, because again, you're going to practice like you're going to play it. And when I was, kind of an example of that, even when I make these videos, they're black and white, right? they're back to the basics. I'm doing sheets of paper, right, and a pen in front of you, and I'd say, and one person made a comment way back about, oh man, this is too simple. This is 2021. You can't get away with this stuff. And it was kind of a little bit of one of those comments, but they miss the point of the exercise. Is the reason it's black and white, the reason it's paper, is because it's simple, right? It's the most basic you can do. Is that I don't want you to think that if I got to entertain you in the sense of, with a bunch of different animation and stuff like that, then we're missing the boat here. So that's why I keep it real simple. Pay attention to the details. It's about learning the information. And if you can learn the information with this simple black and white videos, such as what we do here, I promise you, when you get to test day, it's going to be like, all right, this is easy. I'm in there. I'm in the zone, because I've been in more difficult situations than this. So there's a purpose behind everything we do. But I'd say when you study, and when you're kind of preparing for this exam, hold yourself accountable, pay attention to the little details, and they will most definitely pay off when it comes to test day. Now the fourth tip, this is kind of the one that I really like, and I've really applied this in my own life on many levels, not just for the STEP exam, but relationships, confidence, all the way down to even what I choose to wear. Is you got to create that. In my mind, if you're trying to create that confidence, you got to create. If you can't just obtain it right instantaneous, which we can't. It's something that we have to build upon. But you're going to need those moments, because even when you study, you're going to have those moments where you're like, I'm overwhelmed. My mind drifted off into something negative. What do I do? And one of the things that I've done is you kind of create this shadow, this alter ego of yourself. And for me, my name's Randy Neal. So of course, Randy is just the name that obviously you grew up with and you hear so much. Neal, not so much, other than now being called Dr. Neal. But I kind of created this character a persona of Neal. And so when I think of Neal, when I turn into Neal, this is this person who's the ultimate confident. He's quiet, calm. When there's a situation, he doesn't react. He'll take a step back and kind of analyze it. He doesn't talk unless there's something really that needs to be said. But ultimately, it just allows you that extra sense of confidence. And if you have trouble creating that, what I would say is, find a person that's a movie, kind of a movie persona. For example, Daniel Craig in the late James Bond movies. He's kind of this cool character. He drives a nice car. He always gets the girl. He's calm, cool, collective. If you can pretend you can have those type of characteristics, it creates confidence. Because when you walk into that exam, and again, I've done this. I've done it many times. Is you walk into that exam and everybody else is kind of scampering, kind of looking through their notes. You can just read the expression on their face of being worried. I developed that mentality of just a calmness and a mindset of, this is just a formality. I'm here because I'm going to take this exam. I've prepared for it. I'm going to see questions that I know, maybe some that I don't know, but I'm going to go on these little winning streaks. I'm going to get 2 out of every 3 questions right. And I had that mentality of I own you, and it was a calm mentality. It wasn't like I was walking around saying I own you, but it was just more of a quiet confidence. And I would say develop that part of you, and again, create a name, whatever name you have, your middle name or last name. But for me, it was just, I created Neal, and he was just that person who had the confidence during those times that I didn't, or that I didn't feel like I was there. And it was just a quick way to shift into that confidence setting. So I'd say on that 4th step is just to create that create that ego for yourself. And the last step is just to identify and ask yourself, and I say this every time, is to ask yourself at the end of the day, am I better today than I was yesterday? And as long as you're moving in that right direction, I promise you the results are going to take care of themselves. But a lot of this is just about gaining that confidence. You got to have the material, right? There's no question about that. You got to have the material, but that's easy. And if you really broke down this test, it's just a bunch of memorization and test taking skills. And that's something that we cover on this channel kind of endlessly. So, but I would still say if you cannot go to bed at night saying that I'm better today than I was yesterday, then don't go to sleep. I mean, you just flat out, you do something else, work the extra mile, outwork the person, just outwork everybody else in that sense, because that also builds that confidence of just knowing that you're going that extra mile. But I will say this with a little disclaimer to that statement is, this test is really you versus you, and it's not really you versus anybody else. It's just becoming that greatest expression of yourself. So I always believe, success or failure, it is determined well before you are going through that process. It's your mindset when you first start. So yeah, those are my 5 steps, guys, and I think I've kind of used those over the years in many things, not just for tests, relationships, for a lot of things. And I think it's helped me, and I'm hoping that I can get some feedback from you guys that maybe it's also helped you as well. So keep moving forward, guys.